week we get about 10 offers from people saying, oh, my grandfather passed on, and we have this set of books called 100 Greatest Books published by the Easton Press, or we have the world's greatest literature by the Franklin Library, these beautiful leather books. And I say, well, I usually say if they're new or like new with no terrible ownership markings, we're interested at a reasonable price. I said, what would you like for the books? And often they come back and say something like, we were thinking about $50 a book. Now, I do understand, and we do understand, that the Easton Press and the Franklin Library did charge probably that much, if not more, when these books first were printed 30 and 40 years ago. I think that's when they must have began this in the late 70s. And that probably was the going rate from the publisher. Now, since those 40 years have passed, a lot of those people have also passed. Mm-hmm. And now these books are coming back into circulation in huge quantities. Like I said, every week we get offered 10 offers of these types of books. And the point is that people out there with Franklin Library and Easton Press, especially the 100 greatest and the world's best literature and all those classic titles.
Those are widely distributed. They were not tight limitations. They weren't like limited to 500 copies, or they weren't even limited to 1,000 copies.
Correct.
Those are probably pumped out in the tens of thousands.
I would guess. But they're not scarce and they're not rare. Especially those series. Now, mind you, there are some really good series, the science fiction series. The signed first editions are okay by the Franklin Library, but even the signed first edition series, which came out in the late 70s, early 80s, a lot of those books retail between $10 and $25 in great or new shape.
Not uncommon.
Yeah, so just want to put the word out there. If you contact us to buy these types of books and you don't get the kind of financial reply you expect, I want you to know that the market is currently flooded on those series of those books. They're beautiful. They make great furniture. They fill a room. You look smart when you have them behind you.
I like it.
I like it too. They're great for that.
Now, you always ask the people who come to you with the books, do they have ownership markings? Do they have book plates in them? Did Grandpa sign his name on the front freehand paper, or put a hand stamp on it or something like that? That's super important, correct?
Very important, yeah. So if you are one of the owners of these, and you continue the subscription, if you want them to be sort of an investment piece, although I don't know what kind of investment piece they are, you're going to do everybody a service by not putting your name on them, by not pasting that little book plate in there. All those sort of things, all those imperfections kill the resale value of these pretty leather books.
Remember when we were called down to Marietta, Ohio? The decedent had a house full of hunting trophies, like stuffed. I think he had a stuffed giraffe head that was about 9 feet tall, among other trophies. But he also had bookcases loaded with Easton Press and Franklin Press, which looked beautiful. Franklin Library. Which looked beautiful, but once you open them up, he had a gaudy book plate pasted on the front freehand paper, and then he took a magic marker and had a lavish and just as gaudy signature on the front blank.
And I believe he also had an embossment stamp, maybe even a colored embossment stamp.
I think it had a gilt paper on it. Yep. Yes, it was a horror show. And we quickly extricated ourselves from that situation, much to the what I want to say, mystery of the people who were trying to sell the books. They didn't understand, why wouldn't you want these wonderful books?
Right. They were it was horrible what the owner did to those books. Now, you think people ever read these kinds of books?
I can't imagine. They look like furniture to me.
They're beautiful. They're beautiful to look at. But come to think of it, we don't have a lot of returns in our business. Generally, we're very, very careful when we describe our books. And I personally handle 99% of the Franklins and Eastons. But we did have an expensive set come back. I think it was Easton does a limited edition deluxe limited edition series, they're very expensive books. I think we had a 2-volume Dickens, which the guy we sold it to said, "Hey, this book is missing page 260 to 280." They said, "That's impossible." Well, not impossible. Please send photos. The guy was right. Easton Press blew it, and they left the signature out of that book. And here I am thinking nobody ever reads these things. The guy got to page 260 in volume 2 or whatever. It was stunning.
He doesn't know what happened to Little Dorrit after all.
Right. That set is now we have redescribed that set, and it is available at a discount bargain basement price.
And it is literally furniture now.
It is literally furniture. You cannot read that book properly now. Right. But that book is for sale at ZubalBooks.com currently. That set, nice set, in defective condition.
Excellent. We do a lot of traveling in our business. We're here in Cleveland, Ohio, which is loaded with all sorts of books, but we get called to various parts of the country at various times of the year to acquire collections. In early December, I was contacted by a professor that I've had previous dealings with, and he was down in Baton Rouge, and he had retired on December 1st, and the administration of his university said, "Okay, you retired, get out of your offices." Well, he had very large offices on campus, which held about 10,000 books, 10,000 volumes. Well, Tom and I made the arrangements, and we flew down to Baton Rouge. And earlier in this podcast, I was talking about overloading a Ford Fiesta with books in the Bay Area to the point where Diana thought the axles were going to snap, which luckily they didn't. Well, in this adventure, we get a 16-foot box truck and load the 10,000 books into this box truck to the point where when you open up the back door of the truck, the boxes kind of want to fall on you. So it was overloaded and just packed to the gills.
Well, don't forget, we began at the office at LSU, and when it was you and me and the professor, and he had a couple helpers, and I think at the office there were 8,000 books.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
which we were loading to the front of the truck. We had a lift gate on that truck, and I was pushing them to the front 4 or 5 high, like a perfect cube. Now, when we finished those 8,000 books, which took us, I think, about 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, it was backbreaking. We then had about 8 feet of space at the back of the truck for the 2,000 books which were at his house, which we were going to get the next day.
Correct. Yeah.
And so we get in the drive of the truck, and the truck now is hunched forward. We're almost like peering over the road because of all the weight at the front of the truck and that 8 foot of space at the back of the truck.
I wasn't doing the driving.
Yeah, it was rather frightening. The tires were rather low, especially the front tires, because they were only singles on the front. We did have double tires on the back, which was good.
Yeah.
And I think we were exhausted, and we immediately, it was a Saturday, and we went to our Airbnb and cleaned up, and then had a night on the town down in Baton Rouge.
Oh, yeah. And we had some great grilled oysters, some etouffee, and a couple Manhattans.
Yeah, we met some nice people out and about. It was a nice little town. Both of our first trips to Baton Rouge.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'd never been. Yeah, the people were really friendly. I loved it.
Very friendly people. Yeah. And so then we woke up Sunday morning, and we had this ridiculously huge breakfast.
That's right, at Frank's.
Frank's, yeah. I think I had a big pile of potatoes and cheese and chili.
Yeah, but we had that sausage sampler with the Boudin sausage and the Boudin sausage and the alligator sausage and the kielbasa. Man, that was great.
It was damn good.
It was amazing that we were able to function after that.
We had to carb up. So then we drove to the professor's home.
Yeah.
And he had a couple helpers there, which was good.
Yeah, I think he had more helpers there than at the campus and fewer books.
Yeah. So then we got those 2,000 books.
Yeah.
And that went right to the edge of the box truck back door. Now we were a perfect cube. And fortunately, now the front end was no longer hunched over the road. We were all just very low to the ground.
Equilibrium.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And then we couldn't.
Well, that's a
offload.
Sunday.
That's
yeah.
a Sunday. So of course the freight depots are closed, and we had to drive this truck around as little as possible. And we had to go watch the Browns. We had to find a Browns bar to watch the Browns game at.
I think that was the last victory of the season.
I think it was. Who did they beat that
Cincinnati.
day? It's a Cincinnati game. Yeah. And we watched the New Orleans Saints lose a heartbreaker that day, as the Browns normally do. The Saints took over.
That's right.
Karmically.
Exactly. It was a big switcheroo.
Yeah, and so then Monday morning rolled around, and we proceeded to drive 50 miles
to Hammond.
Where the freight depot was and where the pallet place was. Because now we have what? We have how many boxes? 840, maybe 320 boxes?
Yes.
320 boxes weighing each about 50 pounds or something?
Correct. 50, 55 pounds.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're driving, and I'm driving this 16-foot truck. But I'm doing my usual 65, 70 miles per hour. It's driving well, but we're still very low to the ground. The tires are holding up, but it's scary. We get to the depot?
Everything goes smoothly. We assemble 8 pallets. Nose high, if I could say that. Shrink wrap them. The dock guy gets them on the dock, and we say goodbye to him. We take the box truck back to the rental company.
Well, before that, we did get some po' boys.
Oh, that's right. After that job, we hit a little shack out in the country, and had probably one of the best sandwiches I've ever had. It had deep fried boudin sausage on it, pulled pork, and I think some salami or ham on it, and it was better than sex. It was great.
It was amazing looking.
Yeah.
Mind you, I had to watch him eat it. Monday is my day of fast, so I don't eat till 6 p.m. on Mondays. So I took my po' boy to go for the airport.
You should have had a traveler's dispensation and taken it down. But that with that ice cold Coke, and I was right as rain and just in a perfect place. Yeah. So then we get back to the rental place with the box truck.
We were not getting no names, please. No names.
No.
Okay.
The guy comes out and he does the walk around and everything's in order, and we sign the forms and pay the money for the rental, and I say, by the way, what's the weight limit on that truck? He says, let me check that out. He goes on his computer. He says, weight limit 6,000 pounds. Oh, well, those 8 skids at the shipping company weighed out at 13,000 pounds.
Yeah.
Much like the Ford Fiesta, it was divine intervention that the structure of that truck held up under all that weight.
Amen. Thank you, God. It was a scary but successful trip.
And like the books shipped from the Ford Fiesta, those books arrived. Can we mention the shipping company, because they're doing an exemplary job lately?
I think we could say good things about good companies.
Yeah, Estes Freight, ESTES Freight. Man, that stuff showed up exactly as we said goodbye to it in Hammond, Louisiana. It got to our docks in Cleveland, perfect, unmolested, undamaged, and exactly as we shipped it.
And I think in a future episode we will discuss lost freight shipments.
Heartbreak. In this next section, we're going to be talking about duplicate book pages advertised on Amazon.com.
Yeah, now we've been sellers on Amazon.com since I think 1999 or 2000. I know it was definitely before 9/11. And so we have, I don't want to say intimate dealings with Amazon, but definitely when Amazon was a smaller company in the early 2000s, we had personal contacts there in the book department. Some we still have, but they are, of course, a giant machine at this point, and most times it's very difficult to get human contact that is reasonable at Amazon. I think that the entire seller support department comes out of Asia somewhere. I'm just basing that on their names and on some of the language barriers that we face when we communicate with seller support.
Yeah, I understand. Sure.
But so what I've noticed, because we always are on Amazon.com because our books are there and we're trying to competitively price things and learn about the market, is that you will have a book